right. Welcome to Tribulation 515, 2011. We have reached day 505. It's a Friday, September 21st, out here in San Jose, California. We got another awesome day. It's about 56, 60 degrees. The sun is out. There's a beautiful blue sky. Lots of chemtrails out there. I want to welcome anybody that's new to the channel. There's all sorts of stuff going on. The tribulation that is unfolding right in front of my eyes. If you've been with me watching my videos, then you've been on this journey too, watching the tribulation unfold in front of you. And slowly but surely, we keep watching the world spiraling downwards into chaos. So, I kind of mentioned in my last video blog that the 19th of September, had this like star alignment that was bringing signs of upheaval and revolution. I don't think I actually mentioned in that video, but the last time it was kind of like Uranus and Pluto squaring off. I'm not an astrologer, so, you'd have to look that up. But the last time it kind of happened was in 1933, which is when Hitler rose to power. But anyway, since then, there's been all sorts of crazy stuff happening since I did that blog. We had our embassy in Libya and actually in Egypt and several other places were all attacked. We had our president, telling us that it was all because of a movie, which is a complete lie. Everything we know about the movie, from the producer who's fictitious, Sam Basile, I am an imbecile, to the fact that the movie had been on the internet for like a year, and all of a sudden the titles changed, and to make a long story short, our government, Barack Obama, whatever they're covering up, whatever they're up to, they're trying to sell us a story that a movie inflamed the whole Middle East. And, everything about the attack on the embassy where our ambassador was killed and 3 other Americans were murdered, everything about that attack, tells you that it wasn't random and a bunch of people protesting a movie. They had rocket launchers and mortars and all sorts of weapons. And, it was somebody with a plan and a purpose. And, you know what? Oh, by the way, all of that went down on 9/11. But let's not connect the dots. 9/11, 2001, that's when they attacked us, and flew 2 planes into the Twin Towers. But, 9/11 in 2012, there's no connection between the Americans that died at the embassy and 9/11 of 2001. Oh, no. It was just spontaneous, How dumb does our president think we are? The answer is pretty dumb, pretty stupid. So, even today, in the news, I woke up, in Pakistan, everybody's out in the streets throwing rocks, burning American flags, saying, "I hate America." And my friends, what I don't understand is, the president we got, he tried to cover up or tell us a phony baloney story about why the embassy in Libya was attacked. But in general, he's been kind of covering up the whole war on terrorism. He tried to sell us a bill of goods that when he killed Usama Bin Laden, now remember, it wasn't the SEALs, it was the president that shot Usama Bin Laden, at least according to him. But when he killed Usama Bin Laden, the war on terror was over, But my friends, that is part of another big deception, because if you look at the whole time Obama's been in office, we've had one attack after another, some successful, some failed. But when you look behind it and say what caused it, it's some radicalized Muslim, But they don't want to publicize that in any way, shape, or form. They treat each one as an individual, one-time event, an isolated case. Even though there's nothing but commonality in purpose and who it is, when you actually examine who did this. And I'm not saying there isn't stuff that's done by people that are not Muslim, but I'm just saying there is a war going on between the extremists, the radicalized Muslim world and the U.S. And they can incite the crowd, like by some phony baloney story about a movie, that was completely fake. But they can even use that. So now we're a week down the road from the attack on the Libyan embassy that killed 4 Americans, and now they're exciting all the people in Pakistan and around the Middle East. They're making them an indignation, where all the Arabs are like, "What? How dare you make a movie about insulting the Prophet? I'm going to pick up a big rock and go crack somebody in the head." It's nothing godly about that. But you know what? They like the chaos, because don't be surprised, like what follows that is a government crackdown, But my friends, I don't want to get completely off track here. What I wanted to kind of say is it is September 21st. So tomorrow, Saturday, is September 22nd. It is the fall equinox, where it's a balanced day where there's equal portions of sunlight and nighttime, whereas once we get into fall, start having longer nights, shorter days. But 9/22 is the fall equinox. I'm just going to throw this out there with everything that's going on, and the fact that they launched an attack on 9/11, which was on the 11-year anniversary of 9/11. But there's no connection, that's what the White House wants us to believe. There's no connection between that and 9/11 back in 2001. But 9/22, the 22nd of September, is the 11-year, 11-day anniversary of 9/11. So it's the 11/11 anniversary, which is double 11, and 22 is 2 times 11, or a second 11 event. So, back in the good old days under George Bush, we had red, orange, and yellow alert. Obama did away with it all because he's like, man, there is no war. Nothing's even going on. Like it's all coincidental. But, I'm just amazed that our government, if Obama's looking out for us, he should have us on like a yellow or an orange alert. Everybody, staying sharp and staying focused, even through tomorrow and for the next week or so, if you ask me. Because my spider senses are tingling. And, I know a person that had a video or where they had a vision of a plane going down. And then I was watching a commercial, the Southwestern Airlines commercial, where it's got these 2 guys battling each other on a timeline. And the one guy, he's on like a frozen calendar and he tries to plant a flag on the 22nd and he gets ejected over the edge into the abyss. Whereas the other guy, the Southwestern guy, he's on the golden path and the golden calendar and he plants his flag on 9/22 and proceeds forward. Is that the Illuminati, the Golden Age? And are they saying something's happening on 9/22? But ever since that day, which was about, a week or so ago, and seeing that commercial, man, the number 22 and the number 44 has been just popping up big time in front of me all day long. And, maybe it's because once you get that stuff in your mind, if you start thinking 22, then that's all you see is 22s. I don't know, man, but my spider senses are tingling. So I just hope we get through tomorrow and the next couple of days, the next week or so, because there's all sorts of crazy stuff happening. And I'm going to stay with the crazy stuff because, once again, we have on 9/27, Mercury goes into the womb of the constellation of Virgo. It's in there for about 3 days. It's born right at the end of the 30th or on October 1st. Mercury comes out of Virgo, which some people might think is a further fulfillment of Revelations 12, the man-child being born. That all kind of correlates with the Jewish festival of the Feast of Tabernacles, which basically starts at the end of the 30th of September and goes for 7 days through the 8th of October. And what the Feast of Tabernacles kind of celebrates is a couple of things. It's kind of in remembrance of the 40 years of the nation of Israel wandering in the wilderness, which was kind of like their trials and tribulation. It's where they met God face to face and had God literally living with them, and they were completely dependent on God for shelter, for food, and they had to learn, how to have a relationship with God. And anybody that couldn't, perished, didn't make it to the promised land. But they also kind of celebrate 1,000-year reign of Christ on earth. And, think what you want to think about that. I've been telling you there's a battle between 2 kingdoms, so there is a kingdom coming, And I tell you, Christ is, Christ is king. Yeah. But I will tell you, from my perspective, the 40 years in the wilderness, is the Israelites not only had the presence of God amongst them, but they probably had the presence of Satan amongst them too. And that's why a lot of them didn't make it, through the wilderness. So that could be the period that we're going into, which is our wilderness period. Everybody, it doesn't hurt to have some emergency supplies, extra batteries, water. But I've been saying, that framework that we have on reality, that picture, the white picket fence, the 2 cars, the 401ks, the stock market, all that stuff is going to get flipped on its head, and it's going to disappear. So what you want to do is get your mind and heart right, spiritually get right, and know where your treasure is. But that's kind of like what happened to the nation of Israel out in the wilderness. You had to figure out what was important. But, the Festival of the Tabernacles is where they all have to live in a temporary shelter. And if there's some kind of big, huge, global, catastrophic event, maybe several events, we could all be living in temporary shelters and being refugees and being dependent on God. But another thing that happens, on the festival of the Feast of the Tabernacles, on October 3rd, Venus aligns perfectly with Regulus, the king star in the constellation of Leo. And a lot of people think that's the star of Bethlehem. But anyway, on 10/3, that's kind of also symbolized in this festival. Actually, I think they do it all 7 days, which is the pouring of water on the altar, which symbolizes the living water being poured out. And Jesus himself, kind of said on the 7th day of the feast, he said, I will pour out the living waters for all who thirst. And you know what? If that's actually coming up, then all praise to God, because that's a spiritual event that I'd be looking forward to. Now, if you're not on the boat with God and Jesus, you might be singing another tune. I'm going to throw this out there. My whole life I felt like my birth date pointed to something. So I was born on July 10th, 7/10/1962. 7/10 came and went in 2012. And, there was some things that happened that day, but nothing, earth changing, at least nothing that I could observe. But, a lot of times in this whole mystery plan of things are either flipped upside down on their head or reversed, kind of like the mirror image. So I was just thinking, my birthday, 7/10/1962, if in Europe they actually list dates as 10/7, like you're born on the 10th day of the 7th month, which would 10/7, that's October 7th. So once again, October 7th is coming up, which is the end of the Feast of Tabernacles, and then on October 8th is the 8th, which is kind of like the last great day that they celebrate, the number 8, and 8 kind of is another one of those numbers. But 10/3, Venus aligns with Regulus, and the spirit pouring out, coincides 3 days after Mercury is born, the man-child. I'm connecting those dots. I could see something happening, but I'll go a little bit deeper into that over at Operation End Times. We'll kind of talk about all that stuff, but just trying to stay with what's actually happening in the world. Well, you know what? You better hope some spiritual stuff is happening, because worldwide, things are a mess. The global economy, which I pretty much think is going to collapse. I think they, being those in power, the Illuminati, they want it to collapse, so they can start the one world currency where they come out even ahead of everybody else. But the world economy is basically in a quagmire. The Federal Reserve, Bernanke, is printing money like there's no tomorrow. Not good news. The Disarm America Act, which was done like a year ago when they couldn't figure out how to make a budget, and nobody wants to deal with the deficit that we can't pay back. So they passed a bill which basically said they were going to cut and gut the heck out of Medicare and the healthcare system and the Defense Department. They were going to cut $500 billion, and all our generals, everybody, and anybody that knows anything is saying, "Hey, this isn't a good idea just to cut across the board $500 billion." And you know what, America, we're already pushed to the brink, because we're spread out all around the world. And I'll tell you, if coming the 1st of January we're taking $500 billion out of our Defense Department, we're going to become even weaker, and it's not probably a good time for that to be happening. And that happens in about 3 months. So you know what? None of that bodes well, as far as the world, oh, America, who once stood up for freedom and justice is now just going to chill out, lead from behind, and cut our defenses in half. The Middle East is a mess. We got everybody getting incited, indignant, over this movie, this fake movie that nobody's even seen. They want to stir up the chaos and the violence. We got our government, the United States government, our President Obama, who's pretty much denying the war on terrorism. We got the most corrupt attorney general in the history of America with Eric Holder. I can't even go down the list of what the hell he's doing, but between the two of them, this country ain't safe, and they're not putting out any kind of warning on what could possibly be heading our way by tomorrow, let alone in the next couple of weeks. The Tea Party, the Occupy Wall Street, the unions, they're pushing everybody to get out into the streets, protest, throw stones, And of course, weather-wise, the chaos continues. The polar caps, the Arctic polar cap is melting at a phenomenal rate, and the Antarctic polar cap is getting bigger by the moment. But either way you look at the globe, it's kind of unbalanced with no ice on top and a lot of ice below, like somebody's trying to flip the whole world upside down on its head. And the Arctic, think about it, arc and tick, that's electric, and a tick is something that sucks the blood out of everything. So, whatever diabolical plot is coming, it's the Arctic is probably part of it, Volcanoes around the world are going off everywhere, which shows just, levels of geothermal activity that we haven't seen in ages. Earthquakes are everywhere. The sun is still going bonkers, and the whole solar system is being affected. We've seen this plasma discharge on Jupiter. They still can't explain. They told us it was a meteor, and yet there's no evidence that it is a meteor because there's no debris field from the meteor hitting Jupiter. And Jupiter, oh, by the way, while all this other star alignment is going on, Jupiter is right there in the middle of the horns of the bull, man, kind of like right out of the Old Testament days when they were worshiping the bull. But, the food supply of the globe, is not getting better. It's getting worse, with all the typhoons, flooding, droughts, and then the animal and bird and bug and fish die-offs, the radiation leaking out of Fukushima, and of course disease and pestilence is kind of everywhere from the West Nile to Ebola to God knows what, bacteria, staph infections, flesh-eating bacteria. You know what? The stuff is everywhere and anywhere. So, I'm just trying to put the real back in real. But if you've been blessed that you're living some kind of hedged-in existence, that you got a bubbleized cocoon, view of everything because everything in your little world is going okay, then you're exactly where they want you. They want you to believe that you can be in the cocoon, and that what's going to happen is the cocoon will open up and you'll become a beautiful butterfly and life will be wonderful. Well, I got to tell you, my friends, the reality is the cocoon you're in, you're not a caterpillar morphing. What you are is you're in a spider web's cocoon and you're being sucked dry, and soon you're going to be a dead husk, So you need to wake up and take a step back and, see beyond the matrix, the web, the deception, the picture that has been painted saying this is how you should live. This is what life's all about. Because I tell you, my friends, if you really understand what life is about, it's not about that, All right. Hey, stay thirsty. This is Tribulation 515, 2011. The tribulation continues. I'm going to pray for everybody that God pours out his spirit and his love, man, because that is what is going to conquer the day. Love. All right, my friends. Stay well. Think positive. Go out and do something nice. Feed somebody, help somebody. All right.